wrong. And I didn't care that it was out, well, I'm more than anything.
Afraid. Yeah. What's interesting, I think it was, the other thing that came up again in the meeting is, that's all. Where they have really nice streets. Yeah. That's what I was saying. They're not exclusive or anything. Not too far. Are we ready?
Yes, we are. We're live.
Oh, we're live now.
And Deborah told me.
Oh, you're kidding. I wasn't listening. I wasn't either. And you always so much. You don't need it. It is 2:00. October 26, 2022, is on this special meeting of the Wood Creek City Council to order at this time. If we can rise for everyone in silence and stay risen for the pledges, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the United States, one state, under God, one indivisible. Did you have both comments?
No. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
All right. So if we can call roll, please.
Mayor Jessica,
Yeah, here.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora Bryan. I'm here. Councilmember Chris Garrett,
All right, here.
Councilmember Deborah Hines.
Here.
Councilmember Joe Viterbo.
Here.
Councilmember Brent Foley.
Here. I'm not here. We still need to sit. Great. Thank you very much. We do have a quorum present. And we will, move, we have that on consent agenda. We'll move straight to the regular agenda. Number one item is to discuss and take appropriate action on the application for a special event permit for the Rapper Vale Center for Alzheimer's. It's going to be coming up Sunday, November 6th. Entertain that motion real quickly and then the explanation.
Move that we approve the special event permit for the Rise and Alzheimer's on Sunday, November 6th, 2022.
Second. And seconded by Councilmember Foley. They plan to improve the city anyway. They've already ripped out the maps. They've done it before. I mean, they've used Wood Creek as part of their plan before. And it's kind of fun. We got it, and this is like, okay, when we got the special event permit, or started talking about it, we didn't really have time for it to get on the agenda earlier. So I decided, the way it would be, just go ahead and put the event permit up on the agenda so that we can officially prove it and have it in the record that they are approved to come to the city to encourage this, their participation. That's really all it is.
It went off well last year. There was no problems, and they handled traffic control and all that.
Yeah, they do everything. I mean, they don't really ask us anything, and I didn't feel like, oh, well, we really need to get that $100 or whatever, that, under the circumstances that we'll just call that a donation to end Alzheimer's, which, some of us are probably facing in the near future anyway. Okay, so we move on to number 2. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Please, thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora LeBrun.
Aye.
Councilmember Chris Crummer.
Aye.
Councilmember Deborah Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Joe DeTarvo.
Aye.
Councilmember Brent Foley.
So, now, okay. Moving over to, this is, Councilmember Roberts' item. I've been working hard on the, on our ability to do the grant proposal. This first item, 2 and number 3 are similar. The first one is a resolution to select the administrative project delivery service, for the Texas Community Development Block Grant. If you want to, carry that forward.
I move to approve the resolution to select the administrative project, the delivery service providers to complete the application of project information for the City of Woodbridge 2023-2024 Texas Community Development Block Grant funded and administered through the Texas Department of Agriculture.
Second by Councilmember Picardo.
As you'll see in the resolution, drafters have been selected by the Review and Ratings Committee from the applications received. Michael is here, so if you have any questions.
Yes, so Mike Sledge is one representative from Grant Works, who would, if this goes through, would be the administrators and obviously the entire process. I've been with us before and sort of explained the process, but if anybody had any questions, or if you want to explain a little bit about the process we went through to get the applications for the.
So, what we had to do is, as part of the actual process for the community development block grant, they have very specific guidelines on how we go through the process. And we had to create a ad hoc committee, a review committee, and then we had a very specific rating sheet that we had to utilize for every application that came in. So there was 5, I believe, if I remember correctly, participants in rating their part of this as well as this.
Right.
And then we compiled the data with Suzanne and I. And
So, and then to just sort of flash forward a little bit, remember through the same process for the engineers. Any discussion questions? I think Councilmember Hines.
Yeah, so I have a couple on, probably you might be the best equipped to answer this. And you might have already talked about this last time, I apologize, I didn't have it in my notes. What are the fees and how are they paid and how is that assessed?
So the fees are set by the Texas Department of Agriculture,
Okay,
and they cap out about 16%, for the, administration, and then there's the fee for the engineering portion of it, but the fees are paid out of the $500,000 rate.
A
And
little,
the thing that it's, like I may have said before, the fee will grant works, you can negotiate.
is it paid if we don't get the grant, or is it only paid if we?
Only if you get the grant.
And I have one more, if you don't mind. Is there anything more that the city's going to have to do at this point? If you guys are approved to handle this, is there, I mean, is the city basically like done, you know, and you all just handle it? You kind of,
Well, because this is a process, right? So basically what will happen is, Grant Works will, you guys may come to Grant Works and say, we get these 3 priorities, right? And the people at Grant Works that are experts in the field will help you narrow down that priority to pick the grant that's going to be the most successful one. And what we do is, we view this relationship with you guys as something that's ongoing. So while we start out with this grant, if other grants come up that we feel that you guys are beneficial, we'll be bringing those back to you rather than you coming to us.
I will say that, that in reviewing the applications, from other granting agencies, not only was the Grant Works, proposal, I'll say far above, better than, but they're also a little bit less expensive, as far as the percentage of their fees.
can I clarify my question because I've been knowing, I meant specifically towards the block grant itself, like not the process of grants and your overall administrative services that you provide, but as far as like the block grant itself. What can you kind of outline what steps are next for the city if, for applying for the grant?
So what will happen is someone from GrantWorks will reach out to you guys and walk you through that process, right? Because the different groups that GrantWorks handle different parts of the grant. But they will hold your hands up the process, so be very comfortable with the process.
So they basically, the grant request is coming from us.
Correct.
But as administrators, you're walking through it.
Walk you through the process.
Step by step. And I would especially say that with the new city manager coming on board, they will be working in.
Okay, just wanted to understand, because there are like full-scale grant writers, right? Where
We
you're
all,
gonna-
yeah.
Okay,
This one.
Okay.
Support it.
all right, cool.
That's my question, this is no companies, you get paid for it.
You're doing a lot of work. Yeah.
No, we're beating fresh fruit and so.
Is it,
Yeah, you have-
I do want to say that, one of the things that I know about GrantWorks is there are quite a few of these entities and there's quite a few individuals that do this for cities, counties, small nonprofits, that cannot afford, like food banks, to have a grant writing department or a person dedicated to that. And the thing that I like about GrantWorks, knowing the founders in purpose and why, is that his goal was to create an organization that would focus on smaller organizations, small cities, and help them, because in the competitive process, having been on the side of awarding contracts and grants, the smaller organizations is a David and Goliath game, and we need this kind of help. And I'm glad that Councilmember Cronus is doing this, and I'm very optimistic.
Yes.
A question about, how do you proceed? It appears that some of your tasks will be subcontracted to other people.
Within GrantWorks, within our organization.
Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily subcontracted, it's certain, divisions within GrantWorks that takes care of certain parts of the contract. But you don't speak for one person pretty much, the process. It's a pretty simple process, very user-friendly process. Yeah.
As you,
We're good? Yeah, there's further discussion. Very good. Call roll, please.
Councilmember Chris Grummer. Councilmember Deborah Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Tarver.
I,
Councilmember Brent Foley.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora Brown.
Aye.
Okay. Ayes and nays, motion passes unanimously. Pretty exciting time for our city. Number 3, related but not equal, I'll just turn it over to you, Councilmember Bremer.
I move to approve the resolution to select the engineering architectural surveying service providers to complete project implementation for the City of Wood Creek 2023-2024 Texas Community Block Grant funded and administered through the Texas Department of Agriculture.
Second,
Second by Councilmember Hines,
Mayor, if I may,
please.
TLC Engineering Inc. went through the same review and ratings process with the ratings, ad hoc ratings committee. And they were the ones awarded for this position.
And again, I would say that comparing the proposals was, pretty eye-opening. This is certainly, there were 2 pretty decent ones. These were, again, it was easy to make a decision.
so similar question to the last one. What are the fees? What's the role? What's the result of their work, or like what's left for the city to do? And then if, so I imagine they'll be studying some things. I'm guessing we then own those studies and we could act on them. If the funds, if like the grant funds only portions and then they identify more work, we would have those studies to use for,
Because it'd be forward.
right, and we would own it. So yeah, I guess what are the fees?
Again, I remember the grant.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact amount for the moment. It was in the applications.
Okay.
So what it is the applications themselves saying what they would be willing to take for the position.
Okay. I didn't see
And that
that.
was actually one of the ratings questions. Was
Okay.
where do they fall in the category of, are they the top most expensive ask? Or the bottom? And again, it's state, mandate, it's state mandated?
That is correct, takes the public agriculture, determines the maximum fee.
And then some obviously went under that. Yes.
And then, so their role essentially is to do all the engineering studies for the application,
For the work.
For the work.
for the work.
Once the grant is awarded,
Okay, so
then, grant work actually helps us with the administration of the work product. So working with the engineers so that all comes together and meshes so that, if we decide that we need to do some drainage over here, then that process is managed. As part of the grant administration.
okay, so they don't do the engineering studies to apply for the grant. They come after the fact, if the money is awarded. So is there, what is the information we need for the grant application? Like if we're not having engineering studies in advance, I'm trying to figure out what does the city have to do from this point forward? And then what is gonna be owed on that, how that funding mechanism happens.
So we have some administrators of that grant.
Yes, so what will happen is once you have grant works, basically what we'll do is we'll start talking to the engineering firm, we'll be talking to you guys more. And as I was saying, this process will move forward smoothly. We help you find the right project, grant work will take care of the paperwork and make sure reports and those kind of things are done and done on time.
So I think the city, if I may,
Go ahead, please.
I think I can see the city's role and your role as part of council's oversight of that to the degree there will be, there will be performance standards, expectations, and there will be the city's role will be to oversee that those are met, and then, throughout the project. And this company will be like the project manager, if we were to be awarded a grant to do drainage work on Brookside. Okay, so this company would be like the project.
Like after the money, after the studies, they still manage the completion of the.
That's what I'm saying, yes, that's what I'm saying, they would manage, they would be the project manager, and they would also assist the city, and Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, they would assist the city, if we go for bids, for the person to actually do the work, they would assist us in that procurement too.
Now that's a good question, I'll ask that question maybe back.
But when I look at the product manager, I look at Brent for the project manager, because they're sort of taking the broader view, where the engineering firm that we would be bringing on, we would say, okay, based on our past studies, we got some issues here, we need to fix this spot over here. Okay, put your, get your surveys and things together to help us with that and identify, what needs to be done. And then, they'll probably still be assisting on the actual bid as we go out for construction bid. That, the team, framework and the engineering firm.
And we got a similar situation, but this is not a grant, this was an award that we received through the Texas Division of Emergency Management and Outland Unit for the first round of the new PRA. And so it is a specific area of the city that we have to do a drainage improvement. So before we do anything, we have to have an engineering firm tell us. And in our case, because this happened all before you all came on board and it's a different award, we're having to pay an engineering fee out of the federal award, but we have to, we're gonna use our engineering firm and we're giving them the charge to assess and tell us exactly what would be involved. So I can see the same thing for this company on a contingency.
Yeah, and some of the grant works that we will reach out and completely walk you guys through the process.
That's what I'm
part of the reason why I'm being so detailed today, aside from the benefit to the public, is that Mayor Kirsten LeBrun has decided not to run for re-election on November 9th, or 2nd. We have an election, right?
No.
So they, whatever, the thing is coming. So we might have changes in council, and so I really want as much of this on record to reference, to be able to, you know, point back to, so that, you know, if anybody else is trying to pick up this ball, we don't start over, right? So my next question is, the spots to look at for this process. So it kind of goes back to like, what's the city's next steps? What are you all gonna be handling? So have we begun to identify the spots that we were gonna ask them to look at, or is that something council needs to discuss and push forward? Because I know that the other funds are already dedicated to Jack Miller and Westwood, right? But the entrance to Wood Creek has massive drainage problems. Yeah, so we have a list of these areas that have already been identified as focal points that we are going to give to grant work.
Right, so, you know, my feeling on it is we would go to the Platinum Panel.
Correct.
And say, okay, so we know that we have more drainage problems than we have money for right now, so this, you know, we have applied for a grant. If it comes through, you know, what are the top priorities?
Okay, but I can expand on that a little bit. Addressing, I have great confidence, and I have already, we have, 2 individuals in the Platinum Rose panel that are in the industry. These are people who work, that have full confidence, one is the vice chair, and the other one, both of them are eminently qualified. One of the things that the Platinum panels have done, and that's the vice chair, and kind of, panel member Joe Green, and member Levy, they have walked the city. We know that we know we have limited funding in the current award through PDEM, but we have the Platinum panels fully aware of the critical sites throughout the city where you have drainage, significant drainage problems that are eroding the streets and are also causing safety problems. You know, people hypertending and every rain, things like that. So they are prepared, and they are, in fact, if anything, they are anxious to be able to do more than the one project that can be paid through the PDEM grant, which is only $425,000. So we probably can do one site. And what they done is they looked at all those sites and selected one based on this critical need. It's an intersection that is actively traveled, it's an intersection of people unfortunately have a tendency to speed, so that's why we selected to do first. So I see the Platinum panel as being your right hand in a project.
And I just want to clarify, they've already identified the spots, and is that something they're gonna need in advance for the application of the grant?
They know the spots, so as soon as this gets moving, if you come back to the Platinum panel, whoever may be the chair of the time, the council advisor should be responsible for this, saying, in fact, I'm still the council advisor for a month, what my plan is, what I will do at the next meeting of the Platinum panel, there will be a briefing to them of these 2 items on the agenda, because both of them are relevant to them. That becomes a record, that becomes part of the record of that meeting, and the Platinum panel will be fully briefed and available to help. And I said once again, I brag about that because you're very lucky with members of that panel, the level of experience that they bring to the table.
And quick answer to your question, by passing these motions, we are essentially hiring these 2 firms to help us with this project. The first thing we had in Grant Works would come in and say, okay, this is how we get started. And that's when we say, okay, well, here's members of the Platinum panel that have looked at this, here's the Grant Works person that just does that first thing, identify it before it goes out to actually do. Because they're gonna, I'm sure, want to know, you know, not just, oh yeah, we got some problems with this, give us money. You know, we need to be, very specific about what we want to do.
Yeah, really what we call a kickoff meeting where you ask questions to those.
So, and this is a public service announcement, but within the website, of the city website, there is a section that is about the proposed panel. There's a number of documents there, what the panel has been reviewing. And one of the documents that's there is very critical to drainage, is the full drainage study of the city of Wood Creek, that's about 40 years old. And I can tell you that things change, those haven't changed because we haven't done anything.
I'd like to issue a motion. I understand we have the motion to approve the engineering firm right now on the table, but I'd like to also ask that after the election, council nominates a person from the platinum panel and a person from council to serve as liaison with the grant works people to interface with this and he's in an election right now, or, and we would need designated people, I believe, from both of them. Right, so in theory, they would be volunteers, right, but then everybody would know who these contracts are, their role, and we could.
Can we do that as an amendment to the main motion?
That's what I'm asking.
So, you can amend the motion to make a suggestion that a member of the council, a member of the platinum panel, be named as point persons.
So remember when we were
Go ahead.
the TNO workshops? An amendment is adjusting words in relationship to the motion itself.
So I'm making an additional motion under this item.
I think,
You can have more than one motion under each item. You can have 100 motions under each item. So if you want to consider the first one, vote on it, and then make a subsequent motion.
Before we move on to the fourth item, just accept another motion.
So this wouldn't be an amendment, this would be a separate motion. We'll vote on it first.
She actually set it up as a separate motion.
Yeah, and right now, this is your baby, and I would love if it continues to be your baby. I would recommend that you be that person. I also want somebody from the platinum panel to step up and join you. I can't say, I mean, maybe it should be the chairperson. I don't know. The chairperson has a lot on their plate already.
Just to name the person.
Right, so I just think we want two designated people, because I don't want the project falling by the wayside or somebody else thinking someone else is working
I have no objection, let's go ahead and vote on the main motion, we'll come back to your motion, is that okay?
Yeah.
on it. Other,
and I would make a recommendation that just say a representative, a member of the platinum panel, and the platinum panel can select that person.
I just, it's just a member of council and a member of the platinum.
That's it. Okay, good.
Did we get a second?
No.
A second. So the appropriate order is we're voting on
Mine first, because it was,
her motion first, and then my motion.
okay.
But they're two separate motions, they're not in a minute.
Okay, so we will vote, unless there's any further discussion, we'll vote on the, motion to name a member of the platinum panel and a member of the council as liaison to grant works, on this, block grant.
Question? Point of information, did you put a date?
I said after the election, because naming people now.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
That's it.
Councilmember David Turbo.
Aye.
Councilmember Brett Foley.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora Brown.
Aye.
Councilmember Chris Garner.
Okay.
Councilmember Deborah Hines.
All right, 5 ayes and no nays, passed unanimously. Now, any further discussion on the main motion? No.
Councilmember Deborah Hines.
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Viterbo.
Aye.
Councilmember Brett Foley.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Aurora Brown.
Aye.
Councilmember Chris Garner.
All right, great. Again, 5 ayes and no nays, passes unanimously. Anything else before we go on to number 4?
I'd like to thank Michael for coming here.
No problem, thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's good.
Item number 4, is to discuss and take appropriate action on the updates to section 156.060 good farm sale. And these are recommendation from the ordinance review committee, Councilmember Hines.
I would like like to move that we accept the recommendations from the ordinance review committee and draft an ordinance based on their recommendations in addition to any additional recommendations that council makes.
That's right.
Stated by Councilmember Romer. If you look on the page 12 of the packet, one of the main, said was, the ordinance is striking, that, the only people who can do garage yard sales are full-time, permanent residents of the dwelling, and shall not include renters with rental agreements of less than 6 months, sort of broadens that, so residents of the city can do that, then there's a D has been added, what other.
Yeah, so just, the reason why they wanted to strike that is they felt it was discriminatory and unfair. The reason why occupants of 6 months shouldn't be able to have a garage sale, how they felt. And given the fact that you just moved, likely you need one. So on D, they wanted to add the sign regulation because they felt like it was confusing to have to go reference somewhere else. And it wasn't even referenced at all, right? So yeah, our staff was having to constantly tell people, yeah, this is for garage sales, but also the garage sale signs are actually heavily regulated. So that's why they wanted to add it here, and notice they not only cited the code, but wanted the code written in it, so it was easier to reference. And then they struck the penalty, and essentially it was kind of, they were hesitant to assign any penalty at all, or like what to do there. They're asking essentially that we address it, because the section that referenced, first off, it had nothing to do with garage sales or signs, and it mentioned a fine up to $2,000 for violating the ordinance. And, they wanted to maybe have the sign penalties in the ordinance itself, because they're only listed on the permit, but if you look at them, they're also very high. Like, we're basically deterring garage sales here by those fees alone, and I've heard that from many residents, and myself included, right? When I saw that, I was, whoa, never mind. And then the broader question they brought up is, we don't really have like some sort of structure to our fees. They almost seem as if whoever wrote the ordinance decided a fee, there doesn't seem to be any kind of higher fee. So like, if you broke the garage sale ordinance, you could be fined up to $2,000 versus if you cut down a protected tree, it's only $250, right? So it's like there was kind of this overarching like pressure that maybe council needs to look at all of our penalties and create some sort of like structure to them that fits the crime essentially. So this is just their first ordinance they've really done a deep dive on, and they did not intend for it to take an hour, but it did. This is the result. So I would like to be able to submit an ordinance for November 9th if we have changes to make. Something to consider is that general master fee schedule. Like I said, what fee should we assign for this penalty? Should we reduce our signage fees? Those are my questions for you all.
I have a question, why does there have to be a penalty? You put a sign, okay, here's example of that stuff. You put a sign in the right of way on a roadway that is a county or state highway, they remove the sign, period. There's no penalty. Why does there have to be penalty?
I'm not arguing over any
No,
other.
I'm just saying, I vote for, if the sign is in non-compliance, if the sign is in non-compliance, just pull it up and say, fix it, but I don't think we should penalize.
So right now, what I understand is the point of any of this is so that people come to the city to ask to put the signs up, because we have no sign rule throughout the city, and that they are accountable for removing them when they're done. So I just wanted to establish that those seem to be the goals. So whatever we decide here, let's keep those goals in mind.
So let me make sure I understand, we're basically moving the sign regulation where it wasn't putting it in with garage sale.
Copying it, it's not
It's copied here.
Is that, well, it was being pasted in, so, okay. So that just makes it clear when someone's saying right there, garage sale, they've got that there, so they're going to do the code. Gotcha. Aurora, in terms of your point, it's got to be a little too thin, because the reason why, this was done was we had a time where everyone in the valley would put their garage signs in front of Wood Creek Drive. And then they looked, and there would be sometime, I don't know, 10 of them up there, and it looked ridiculous. So, that's one of the permit process stories, and also we have to put teeth in it so that, you know, people realize there's gonna be a downside to it. So I think there's gotta be some penalty, $2,000, I mean, you don't get that for robbing a thing, it's probably a little high, so.
Well, and the penalties for the signs are different. The penalties for the signs are also really high.
You know, we need to clarify.
I'm not taking it.
Yes.
We,
Or putting them up
On the
without
wrong place.
permission, yeah.
you know, we need to clarify that, put it all in one place so everyone can understand what the situation is. So I think we're on the right track.
Need those recommendations.
It's all statutory language. So under the government code, municipal court fines are set. And essentially all that the ordinance appears to be doing is stating the allowable range for a fine is already set under the government code. But I don't think it's as though the $2,000 number was picked willy-nilly. You said, okay, for certain types of municipal violations, the government code says that municipal court can fine us. We just plug that in. Now, I mean, I can tell you in my time of handling municipal prosecutions in various cities across Central Texas, I think the maximum fine that I've ever asked anyone to pay was $100. Because
For signs or just in general?
or just in charge of any ordinance violation, I mean, you get traffic tickets, it's a different thing, but for an ordinance violation, so what this comes down to is, it's taking the general laws, plugging them into ordinances, and if someone's a complete jackwheel and sticks up 23 signs time and again, in some unreasonable and absurd scenario that would never come to pass, you could envision saying, look, we're gonna have to hit you this fine, because you're just not following the rules, but there's judicial and prosecutorial discretion that plays into how these things work out, and no one ever gets fined.
So to summarize what you're saying, we need to keep 156.999 because it essentially is that authority to find up to 2,000 if somebody repetitively violates.
Yeah.
Right, so what do we want to do about the charging for the signs, the rates we charge, and the penalties for the signs? And do we want any penalty for somebody who continues to have garage sales over and over, like a specific, you are gonna be fined on your second one, or we do not care about that?
So you can't fine anyone, typically, I mean, the way that it works is if someone is flagrant violator, city's had enough, they issue a notice of violation, and then they gotta go to municipal court, and the fine limits are set out in the government code, which was we adopted, and for something like this, it can technically be up to $2,000.
So some of our code have actual fines listed. You have a fine of this amount for this violation, which is, the ordinance review committee is asking these things. This is not me. They're just like, this ordinance is lacking, people lack direction. Here are our suggestions. Council, please draft ordinance.
If they want, I can send over the section on chapter 29 of the government code that lays out the penalties for this violation, so things, they do.
They're done. They want council to do this, because council, yes. Like,
We can do that.
they've made their recommendations. These were just the things they were like, y'all need to look at this, because this doesn't make sense.
I think it's already right to go to ordinances.
I have a comment. When they do the penalties, 152.99, which is in the signs, it speaks to penalties. And it talks about the immediate removal of a sign that is not conforming or does not have a permit. And it says, of course, a civil penalty of up to $500 a day when it is shown that the defendant was not fully notified of suspicions of the charge. And after receiving notice, conviction acts in violation. That's good. So they just look at 152.99 to make sure that everything goes together.
So the sign permit application also has like fees. Do we want these in here? Is one of the questions they're asking, like, so the fees, you know, it says they're charging. It's $35, I think, for the first sign, and then $10, $25 for the first sign, $10 for all the ones after that. And then the penalties after you remove it, or if you don't remove it. Oh, did y'all update this?
Okay. I have a question, I need clarification. if I have a garage sale, I come to the city and I have to put signs, and those signs are gonna go in the designated areas. Now, if, then in front of my house, on my private property, where people are driving, I put a sign that says garage sale here. That's fine.
In your yard.
Yeah.
Or in your neighbor's yard if you have permission.
Well,
Oh, here it is. Actually, I mean, you don't have to.
In your neighbor, I said in your neighbor.
In my,
I'm saying if your neighbor says, hey, yeah, you put a sign there,
Mayor, if I may, I
well, my neighbor's structure.
you think I'm wrong?
read over that and I want to make it more clear that that's the truth, but,
No, sorry, what's the truth? I mean,
um,
understand what you were just, your point.
I mean, actually, where sometimes was it?
I have 2 questions for my turn.
I, this questions I read to first. They permitted some.
Yeah, okay, so then, it says the right of way sign ordinance is subject to a fine of up to $200 upon conviction, right? So now we have this other, they just want something consistent in the ordinance. So we need to make that decision, and they wanna know if we wanna reduce the fees to even put up signs.
Okay, so my 2 questions are, one, you know, have we ever fined anybody and collected a fine for not removing the sign?
Yes, they all reduce, remove them.
Remove them or we pluck them ourselves, so that's, and then, when people ask, to place signs in designated spots, do they ever say this one spot? Or do they usually say, okay, I'll take all for?
No, it's usually specific.
But, I mean, it seems like it would be a lot easier to just say, okay, we have X number of designated spots. You may put signs in each of them, or one of them, or 3 of them. But the fee is the same. So it's like for $25, you can have a.
No, because we have several people asking for spots on the same weekend. So then if they're all, you don't want them to all be in the same spot, it's hard to put a sign in some of these areas. So they get certain spots.
Oh, wow, that seems like a lot to manage.
There's not one, there's like.
5 spots.
I know, but the spot isn't just, okay, these 2 little holes, they're just like, this is the area.
It's like, it's a cinder block, that's got sand, that you put in this
Yeah.
sign.
Because the soil outside of those cinder blocks are almost impossible.
First impossible.
There's a cinder block?
Yeah, there's cinder blocks and then they're empty. So the holes,
With sand.
with the holes going up and it's filled with sand, so that you can just come and put a sign in and it's still not all that easy.
Right, so,
But outside of that, like if I move 1 foot outside of those cinder blocks, almost impossible.
But you could have different kinds of signs, like you're always talking about like the stakes, like I've seen all manner of garage sale signs, sandwich boards, the boxes with weights in them. I mean, that's what we use, is large cardboard boxes with weights in them, because they stand and you can run them all 4 seconds.
Well, so my question to that is, okay, so there are a couple of spots that are designated, but they're easy. But the same thing, so what happens if you have those 6 people that want to do a garage sale the same weekend and put signs up? I mean, are you gonna say, sorry, you can't have a sign because somebody else has already done it?
yeah.
That's what it currently says, we have the authority to change it.
Mayor, if I may, I'm going to move slightly towards the ordinance as being presented here and have some questions. On page 22, section B, sales at any location must be separated by a minimum of 6 malls. Perhaps rather than creating a limit based on an interval of time, could we maybe do it based on the number of times a year garage sale is held? If such limits is desired by the council at all. I see the possibility of a homeowner is moving, so they have a garage sale. And then somebody moves in and goes, oh, I have so much stuff, I can't put it all in my house. So they come to the city and go, no, that's already, you have to wait 6 months. That
This
just
is by the resident or something?
said 5 days less
Well,
location.
Yeah, any location, that's a good point.
And it just seems really odd to do it on, especially when it comes to renters, now that we're just with that a little bit.
I think the, probably what the reason behind the part of the fund, behind it, was because we were getting to what was doing, like, we were saying,
And I understand that,
every weekend.
I understand that, that's why I was
That was
moving towards this.
just running around, so,
But that's what I'm saying, rather than an interval of time, it's the amount of times in a year. Is moving it's shifting the language.
Yes,
So you say,
instead of,
If we were gonna keep the same kind of,
more than 4 times a year, 6 times a year.
you know, it's that, yes.
Honestly, twice, I mean, that's when you clean up, like,
Very well.
yeah, seasonal garage selling is not insane. I don't think as many people would actually do it as we're,
I think that what you do, it maybe say, you know, twice a year, in the 6 months, by the same person,
owner.
by the same owner. Because then if the house changes hands, or,
I still like, I mean,
I think we can say
it's,
twice a year, 4 times a year, twice a year, maybe not. I never said it in 20 years, but I don't know.
we've given it time.
I give myself.
Well,
We just open it for a store here, and it's just, and it's-
So, garage sales, help people with limited resources. They also help people with limited mobility because you can get something to the driveway, right? And sell it out of your driveway versus having to figure out how to get a trailer, get it on a trailer, have it hauled off, dispose of it. So, you know, we do have quite a few residents with limited resources and limited mobility. So, I think 2 a year minimum is fair. I think going up to 4 or 6, you're kind of, from
I
my
would have said 4 for the season, but 2 a year is fine. On the issue of limited mobility, you know, I understand that all of us who are doing nonprofits, who have retail, we provide transportation. We will pick up and we will pick up for free. Anything and pack up in your garage sale, we'll pick up for free. So, but 2 hours a year is fine, I'm fine with that.
I actually am leaning toward your 4. I'm leaning towards supporting the 4, because it's less city restricting a normal person.
This is the reason I say 4. What I see what I have seen and experienced from my own child is sometimes we have these young, these teenagers that want money for cheerleading uniforms, for football uniforms, or whatever. And the girls, and they decide, and I've had parents, including myself, okay, what do you have to say? And my daughter said, my knee babies. I said, okay, so we did, that's what, so
or you could be under the ground, you could sell something out of your driveway.
So, I think 4 times a year is.
I think it's probably not, you know, I don't know how many people will do 4 for us over the years.
But I'm saying it's the availability.
Even, I'm not arguing 2 or 4, I'm saying, I think it's probably a kind of a non-issue, but if we want to be flexible, let's say 4, up to 4.
Okay.
And by the residents, not locations.
Right.
The residents.
I think it's only fair to do it with, and then, Councilmember Floyd.
yeah, I'm not real comfortable with 4. I mean, I think it's all right, twice a year. You know, Rora's right. You have something, the store picks up. I think the senior, center.
They pick up.
I don't think they love it.
The other thing that I've done is stuff that we want to sell, we put it on, online, we can sell it that way. And take it out with their small, so or can easily pick it up. I just don't want to live next door to someone that's always having garage sales. I think twice a year, I think it's fine, it's not broken, it's not fix it. I think we're open up can of worms, we don't need to, there's plenty of options for people if they need to dispose of something without the garage sale.
I tell you what I see more frequently now is people going on social media, on either the marketplace or next door and saying, the other day, somebody had a chair, patio table with 2 chairs, free to pick up. So, and I see that is that far more active than garage sales. People just say, I have this and this and this in my house, come get it, for $150. So I think this, the garage sales are slowly but surely.
So,
I completely disagree with most of these theories, but like, I use garage sales constantly, I also sell on Facebook Marketplace constantly. The benefit of a garage sale is I literally collect all the stuff I don't want in my house, and one day I sell it all, people think it's gone. I've taken stuff to the village store, they decline it, I have to drive to St. Marcus to take it to Goodwill, because the donation spots here in Wimberley are actually very picky about what they take. Specifically, no mattresses, no baby gear, all kinds of stuff, so like, you see a lot of moms posting, I've got all this stuff, and they're having to like coordinate multiple pickups here in Wood Creek, and you don't have to do that in other places, you just have like a single day sale and it's over. And, so that's just my personal opinion, again, ordinance review sent this to us, just to ask us to adjust it, because they felt that it was, overly regulatory and, prohibitive, and they wanted us to address that.
But they didn't ask to vote it before.
No, they did not,
but
they just,
I was here listening to that. Their point with addressing this one was they felt it was too restrictive, and that's why I was looking at it from their point of view of how do we help accommodate the citizens, because that was their goal. So I'm looking at the ordinance and from that point of view.
There's no formal recommendation about that. I mean, discussing, these are the recommendations we have. And there's nothing that says let's go from 2 a year to 4 a year.
Correct, but I'm bringing that one.
Okay, forward.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Compromise.
That's the.
Read it here, do we wanna say 1/9 P?
How about we, vote on forward?
Oh, we will. There's not a motion.
Okay, well, we haven't made a motion now. I move that we change the wording to sales at any residence.
Okay, remember, I'm just drafting an ordinance.
Okay.
So we could be less formal right now, because the actual ordinance is gonna come back to you all to clarify.
So I'm gonna move on to the next section then, page 12, section C, auctions are prohibited. I would like to hear the discussion on the argument about that. Is it connected to the lack of parking in the city? Is that?
That wasn't addressed.
No, he's bringing it up, because we're reviewing.
It's in front of us. So does anyone have a reason for the argument for that?
I'll be preparing special use permits for that though. I know when, what's her name, Black Chickies, she has I guess, a type of option. Don't just, that's Florida yard.
So
It's a state sale.
So that's an option.
Yeah.
Up there.
It's an auction. You auction a house, you auction a car.
You bid, we have the paddles,
What would you be auctioning?
We have this going up once, twice. There you go.
so they do auctions for estate sales at times. They also do auctions for homes themselves at times.
But since this is under garage sales, I'm assuming it's for the items in the garage. So,
One positive feature of an auction, of course, is something not discussed here, that it becomes a taxable sale. Because you've got a regular company doing it, you can trace them down and do sales tax. We don't do sales tax. I'm thinking back in the past, how many times I've read articles about arguments over garage sales should be taxed them. And they always end up saying no, because it's a nightmare to try to tax something. So once you got a deal, but if we've got an auction going on by a regular company,
Interesting.
we haven't collected taxes.
Wouldn't that be better though if we had, some kind of special use permit, so we have some plan of where somebody can park,
Yes.
Yeah.
So we could put that in the code. Auctions require a special event permit.
Yeah.
And must be from a licensed,
Yeah.
whatever, I'll figure out which terminology.
That's good.
Actually,
Auctioneer.
Auction house.
if I may continue, page 12, section D. If I want to hold a garage sale and I gain permission from my neighbor on the corner to place a directional garage sale sign on their property, currently, the code is written to exclude that.
Thank you.
Is there a way that we can allow the possibility that if it's on private property, it's,
If it's on private, now my take on that, and, you tell me if I'm wrong, if it's on private
section
property,
D, section
and
D.
it is, permitted by the neighbor, that's freedom of speech.
Yes, but it's not written up.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's written, if that's the case, it's
So
written.
it's section D in red. Other than that,
If you get-
it could be required to post on any and all of the locations designated in the city. The application for the permit may be found on the city's website. A garage sale sign may not exceed 4 feet.
It says it, it says it can be posted on any other locations than the designated property site of the garage sale. It does specifically say that.
Yes.
Things
So I
are-
would say if it's on property, and we have the commission for the neighborhood, but we shouldn't
No,
penalize somebody's really, neighbors' relationships.
the-
City's correct.
Okay, so when you say shall not be posted on any property, you can, you're right, find out. That's why I asked the question a few minutes ago. If I want to put a sign in my yard, Greg Parkins here,
In your yard is fine, what Chris is talking about is if I say to the neighbor on the corner, David, you've got prime location for my sign, can I put my sign in your yard? Our code says no.
I think that if my neighbor agrees, it's his property, you have, he should be able to do so. So I agree that we have to fix that. up. This is right.
And do I have another one?
Any other, general agreement,
That's it for me.
So these are recommendations for an ordinance that's gonna come back to us?
Yes.
Okay.
And so the only thing I'm not clear on yet is if we want to set up any explicit penalty for violating this code beyond that reference to just the broad, like you could be fined up to $2,000 for this, and do we want to address the fees for signs? And that concept of only one person can have a sign at each location on a weekend.
I would say that, well, first of all, what are the fees for signs?
$25 per month, the first sign, $10 for each sign.
Yeah. I mean, is there a problem that more people need signs? I mean, the concern I have is the roads are so low, like out there, for wherever. And well, that's why we kind of have a limit, because otherwise you have, signs for Mustang Valley, for wherever, all out there. And
So what if we designated the difference between garage sale sign and all other signage?
Because this is the garage sale ordinance.
No, but the right of way sign permit
Ah.
is what the garage sale signs fall under. So I don't mind that regulation of realtors, right? But if our own residents are wanting to have garage sale signs, so specifically what happened recently for me, well after Amar took this up, was my neighbors were having like just a kind of a yard sale, and they had called the city, and they were like, man, those fees, I don't know if we're gonna do it. And I said, well, maybe we'll join y'all and we'll share in those fees. They're like, yeah, maybe, but like that's all your profits for the day. Go to those signs just to have them in these like, the obvious places you would need them. And I said, I know.
That's $25.
$25 for one sign, $10 for everyone after, and they only wanted like 3 to 4. So I mean, you're getting closer to $100 then,
And the ordinance review committee suggests, yeah, I know that we're going to have these, I know that's one of our income sources, but for something like this. But I didn't know it was that.
In regards to the time the city spends regarding this permit.
permit? How long it takes to issue one?
Just like when somebody comes and applies for a yard sign permit, what is the time spent from the city's point of view?
10 minutes.
how often do you get these
I've
questions?
not watched it. It sort of depends on how many questions they have. They got to fill out the permit, they got to write the check. We got to stamp it, we got to make copies, we got to do a bunch of copies, so 10 minutes is pretty efficient.
How often do y'all get asked about this, and maybe somebody doesn't even follow through with it, these fees are pretty big. Monthly.
So rather than basing it from an abstract, oh, well, I think this is a good initiative, or I think this is a good, liberty. We actually just kind of look at it from the point of view of paying for our city's time when it comes to the citizens, specifically for yard sales.
What about 25 total? There's 5 locations.
That's what I'm.
There's 7 listed ordinance.